She was elegant, talented, and earned 5 Oscar nominations, yet never took one home. Hollywood adored her, but history nearly forgot her. This is the remarkable story of Irene Dunne. If you love untold Hollywood stories, hit subscribe to support us.
You were meant for me. I was meant for you.
Irene Marie Dunne was born on December 20th, 1898, in Louisville, Kentucky, into a close-knit, middle-class family with strong values rooted in faith, discipline, and music. Her father, Joseph John Dunne, worked as a steamboat inspector, a job that kept him connected to the vibrant river trade of the Ohio River region. Her mother, Adelaide Henry Dunne, came from a musical lineage and was a classically trained pianist, instilling in the family a deep appreciation for the arts. Tragedy struck early in Irene's life. When she was just 7 years old, her beloved father died suddenly of a hemorrhage due to a kidney ailment. His death shook the family emotionally and financially. Irene often later described it as a defining moment in her life, the end of her childhood innocence. After this loss, Adelaide decided to move the family to Madison, Indiana, where they had relatives and could live in a more affordable, supportive environment. Madison, a small town on the Ohio River, became the setting for Irene's formative years. Her upbringing there was marked by a strict Roman Catholic education, piano lessons, and strong moral guidance. Her mother, determined to support her children despite being widowed, began teaching music, and she nurtured Irene's natural vocal talent from a very early age. Music filled the Dunne household. Adelaide was not just a teacher, but an example of artistic discipline. Irene grew up practicing piano daily, singing in church choirs and attending concerts whenever possible. She credited her mother as the single greatest influence on my life, both musically and spiritually. If you're enjoying this journey through Irene Dunne's remarkable life, don't forget to subscribe for more classic Hollywood stories, and consider supporting us with a super thanks to keep these golden memories alive. Irene's early dream was not of movie stardom, but of becoming an opera singer, a goal she pursued with devotion and seriousness. After graduating high school, she enrolled in the Indianapolis Conservatory of Music, where she studied vocal performance and piano. Her soprano voice, elegant tone, and disciplined approach earned her recognition among her peers and instructors. Later, she moved to Chicago to study at the prestigious Chicago Musical College, now part of Roosevelt University, where she received formal training in opera, stage presence, and classical music theory. During this period, she earned a teaching diploma in vocal music, ensuring she would have a backup career in case performing didn't work out. Metropolitan Opera setback. After completing her studies, Irene Dunne auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera Company in New York, at that time the most prestigious opera institution in the United States. It was the moment she had long trained for. Unfortunately, she was not selected, possibly due to the overwhelming competition and the Met's preference at the time for European-trained singers. This rejection was undoubtedly a disappointment, but Irene did not let it defeat her. In fact, she later described it as a blessing in disguise. It forced her to reconsider her path and led her toward musical theater and eventually film, a pivot that would define her future. From opera to stage, a career shift. Following her Metropolitan Opera setback, Dunne began auditioning for musical theater productions, combining her singing talent with newly discovered acting skills. She joined stock companies and touring productions, gaining valuable stage experience. Her poise, diction, and musicality made her a natural fit for the light operettas and romantic musicals of the 1920s. This period of transition, marked by grit, training, and adaptability, became the foundation of her eventual rise to Broadway, and later, Hollywood. By 1930, Hollywood had fully entered the era of talking pictures. Studios were rapidly searching for actors with good voices and stage experience, especially those who could sing and enunciate clearly, qualities that silent film stars often lacked. At the same time, RKO Pictures, a newly formed studio, established in 1928, was building a talent roster that could compete with major studios like MGM and Paramount. RKO was investing in musicals and stage-to-screen adaptations, genres that required both acting and vocal talent. Irene Dunne, then a rising star on Broadway, had already made a name for herself in stage musicals like Showboat and Lucky Girl. Her poised elegance, musical training, and graceful demeanor made her a prime candidate for film, especially as talkies demanded more from actors than just a camera-ready face. Irene Dunne's film debut, Leathernecking, 1930. Leathernecking was a film adaptation of the 1928 Broadway musical Present Arms, which had been a moderate hit. The title refers to U.S. Marines, leatherneck being a slang term for them, and the plot was a light-hearted romantic comedy involving military life, mistaken identity, and class conflict. The film tells the story of a brash but likable U.S. Marine, played by Ken Murray, who falls in love with a wealthy socialite, played by Irene Dunne. He pretends to be an officer to impress her, but his deception leads to a series of misunderstandings and comedic entanglements. The story blends romantic escapades, military hijinks, and musical interludes. Dunne's role, character, the elegant, refined, and musically inclined love interest, essentially the archetype she would refine throughout her career. This role played to her strengths. Musical talent. She sang in the film, showcasing her operatic soprano. Poised screen presence. She brought a dignified charm to a fairly straightforward romantic role. Stage training, her theatrical background helped her deliver lines with clarity and timing, essential for early sound films, which often had clunky dialogue and limited editing. Leathernecking was a moderate success at the box office. It didn't become a classic, nor did it make headlines, but it introduced Dunne to cinema audiences. The New York Times called her a pleasant newcomer with grace and talent to spare. Cimarron, 1931. Irene Dunne's breakthrough film. Cimarron was released by RKO Radio Pictures in 1931 and directed by Wesley Ruggles, adapted from Edna Ferber's best-selling novel published in 1929. The story is a sweeping, multi-decade epic that explores the settlement and development of the Oklahoma Territory, beginning with the famous 1889 land rush and continuing through 4 decades of social and political change in the American frontier. This was one of the most ambitious early sound films, made at a time when Hollywood was transitioning out of the silent era and experimenting with large-scale storytelling, historical narratives, and moral complexity. It was also one of the first big-budget Western dramas ever attempted. Irene Dunne played Sabra Cravat, the prim, genteel wife of Yancey Cravat, played by Richard Dix, a dashing and idealistic lawyer, newspaper editor, and adventurer. At the beginning of the film, Sabra is a proper conservative young woman from a well-to-do family in Wichita, Kansas, devoted to her charismatic husband and willing to follow him into the untamed lands of Oklahoma.
I won't listen to you any longer. I don't care about Yancey's past. I married him because I loved him, and I'm going with him. Oh,
As the film progresses, Yancey repeatedly abandons the family in pursuit of justice and the thrill of the frontier. Sabra is left to raise their children and run the newspaper alone, growing stronger and more independent over time. She undergoes a deep personal transformation, from being narrow-minded and elitist to tolerant, powerful, and progressive. By the end, Sabra emerges as a symbol of the American frontier spirit, a woman who has endured hardship, loss, and cultural change with courage and resilience. Aging on screen. Dunne convincingly portrayed Sabra from a young bride in her 20s to a dignified woman in her 60s, with subtle changes in posture, voice, and expression. Photoplay magazine called her a rising star to watch, who gave one of the year's most intelligent performances. Cimarron became the first Western to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Irene Dunne earned her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, a rare feat for an actress in only her second film. Showboat, 1936. A defining performance. It was a groundbreaking musical because it blended romance and racial issues, which was bold for its time, integrated songs and narrative into a seamless story, a rarity in musicals of that era, and featured emotionally rich characters. The story spans decades and centers around life on the Cotton Blossom, a Mississippi River showboat. Irene Dunne plays Magnolia Hawks, the daughter of the showboat's captain, who falls in love with a dashing riverboat gambler named Gaylord Ravenel. Their love story unfolds amidst themes of racial prejudice, poverty, personal growth, and resilience. By 1936, Dunne had already played Magnolia on Broadway in 1929, early in her stage career. So when Universal Pictures decided to make the definitive film version of Showboat, after earlier silent and partial sound versions, Irene Dunne was the natural and ideal choice. This role drew directly from everything that made Dunne unique. Her operatically trained soprano voice, Dunne performed many of the film's iconic songs herself, including Make Believe.
You taught me to see one truth forever true.
You Are Love. Why Do I Love You? Her performances were emotionally expressive. Her voice gave the film a legitimate musical elegance. Her stage experience and poise, her ability to age convincingly across decades, her gift for conveying emotional subtlety and depth. Dunne portrayed Magnolia from a naive teenage girl to a resilient middle-aged woman, reflecting the loss of love, the burden of single motherhood, the struggle to succeed in a tough world. Her acting displayed emotional restraint and sincerity, allowing the audience to deeply empathize with her character without melodrama. Variety highlighted how her performance was touching, genuine, and the highlight of a landmark musical. Theodora Goes Wild, 1936.
You're adorable.
Oh, don't you dare! Don't you dare! You stay right where you are. You come over, step, I'll scream! I'll scream! Do you hear me? You keep away from me! Oh, let me get one thing. My ticket home. You keep away from me! No! I'll get a policeman after you, I will! I'll get a policeman! Stay where you are!
Directed by Richard Bolslawski. Co-stars Melvin Douglas, Thomas Mitchell. Genre, romantic screwball comedy. The film tells the story of Theodora Lynn, a seemingly prim and proper young woman who lives in a conservative New England town called Linfield. She plays the organ at church, attends ladies' society meetings, and helps edit the town newspaper. On the surface, she is the ideal small-town lady, demure, polite, and modest. But she's hiding a shocking secret. She's actually the anonymous author of a wildly popular and scandalous romance novel written under a pseudonym. Her book has shocked her town, even as they don't realize she wrote it. When Theodora goes to New York to speak with her publisher about maintaining her anonymity, she meets Michael Grant, Melvin Douglas, a charming illustrator with a flair for mischief. He discovers her secret identity and encourages her to embrace her wild side. As the story progresses, Theodora sheds her conservative mask and transforms into a confident, free-spirited woman. She returns to Linfield and shocks the townspeople by openly behaving in ways that defy their moral expectations, such as drinking, smoking, and flirting. She ends up challenging societal hypocrisy, fighting for personal freedom, and pursuing love on her own terms. She played a dual-sided character, repressed gentlewoman and bold, free-thinking romantic rebel. Dunne gradually transformed on screen, not with costume changes alone, but with physicality, expressions, and vocal tone. Theodora Goes Wild was a surprise hit, and critics were delighted by Dunne's transformation. Variety said, "Irene Dunne is nothing short of sensational. She's graceful, unpredictable, and hilarious." Dunne earned her second Academy Award nomination for Best Actress for this performance. The film performed well, and Columbia Pictures realized they had found a new leading comedic lady. The Awful Truth, 1937.
I guess I must be in love because I started writing poetry to you.
Oh, dear, well...
I was going to surprise you with it at dinner, but it's short. It goes like this. To you, my little prairie flower, I'm thinking of you every hour. Though now you're just a friend to me, I wonder what the end will be.
Oh, excuse me, Dan. I do laugh at the oddest times. I never
Oh,
get...
you?
You see what I mean?
The Awful Truth, 1937, is not only one of Irene Dunne's most iconic films, but also one of the defining works of screwball comedy, a genre that thrived on wit, rapid dialogue, romantic chaos, and subverting traditional gender roles. Jerry, Cary Grant, and Lucy Warriner, Irene Dunne, are an urbane New York couple whose marriage collapses over suspicions of infidelity. Both are stubborn, proud, and too clever for their own good. They agree to divorce, but with a 90-day waiting period before it becomes final. During those 90 days, chaos ensues. Lucy dates a wealthy, naive Oklahoma oil man, Ralph Bellamy. Jerry woos a respectable debutante. But both can't stop sabotaging each other's new romances, often in hilarious and ridiculous ways.
Say, wait a minute. Don't anybody leave this room. I've lost my purse.
Why, here it is.
Oh, well, am I relieved. Look, will you kind of keep an eye on that for me?
Deep down, they realize they still love one another, but must navigate jealousy, games, and wounded pride before reconciliation. Lucy is smart and classy, yet playfully manipulative. The New York Times. Miss Dunne is a revelation. She is urbane, wickedly funny, and altogether delightful. Critics noted that while Cary Grant was magnetic, it was Dunne who gave the film its emotional gravity. Irene Dunne earned her third Oscar nomination for Best Actress for this role. Love Affair, 1939.
Don't worry. It doesn't have to be a miracle. If you can paint, I can walk. Anything can happen, don't you think?
Yes,
Irene Dunne's role as Terry McKay in Love Affair, 1939, stands among her most deeply emotional and enduring performances. Directed by Leo McCarey, written by Leo McCarey, Mildred Cram, and Delmer Daves. Co-star Charles Boyer. Terry McKay, Irene Dunne, is a spirited American singer, and Michel Marnet, Charles Boyer, is a French painter and international playboy. They meet aboard an ocean liner crossing the Atlantic and begin a flirtatious friendship. Despite both being romantically committed to other people, they slowly fall in love over the course of the voyage. Knowing their lives are complicated, they agree. If they're both still in love in 6 months, they'll meet atop the Empire State Building to begin a new life together. But on the day of their planned reunion, Terry is struck by a car on her way to the meeting, and her injuries leave her unable to walk. She chooses not to contact Michel, not wanting to burden him. The story then follows the emotional distance and chance encounters that eventually lead to a powerful, tearful reconciliation. What made Dunne's performance special? 1. Subtle emotion. Dunne plays Terry with remarkable restraint, never indulging in melodrama. Her heartbreak is often seen in her eyes, posture, and pauses rather than in overt crying or outbursts. Especially in the final scenes, where she tries to hide her injury from Michel, she uses quiet strength and soft vulnerability to devastating effect. The New York Times called the film a sublime romance lifted by Irene Dunne's warm, wise performance. In 1957, Leo McCarey remade the film as An Affair to Remember with Deborah Kerr and Cary Grant. While the remake is more widely remembered today, many film historians and critics believe that Dunne's version is more emotionally authentic and less sentimental. Irene Dunne's performance in Love Affair, 1939, is one of her most emotionally layered and enduring roles. It earned her a 4th Oscar nomination, and decades later, the film remains a touchstone for romantic drama. Penny Serenade, 1941.
You and Roger have been married a long time.
But we don't need each other anymore. Well, that happens to 2 people. There's nothing left.
Director, George Stevens. Co-star, Cary Grant. The story is told in flashback, framed by Julie listening to a series of records, each song prompting a memory of her life with her husband, Roger Adams, Cary Grant. The film traces their relationship from early romance and marriage to financial struggles, to the joy of adopting a child, and eventually to the shattering grief of losing that child. At its core, Penny Serenade is a film about the fragility of love under pressure, the challenge of surviving profound loss. Julie begins as a light-hearted, idealistic young woman, full of hope and romantic optimism. Over time, life hands her profound challenges: miscarriage following an earthquake in Japan, a difficult adoption process, severe financial hardship, the devastating death of her adopted daughter, Trina. But through all of this, she never loses her core of strength, decency, and compassion. The New York Times. Irene Dunne gives one of the most tender and restrained performances of her career. She carries the emotional weight of the film with dignity and heartbreaking realism. I Remember Mama, 1948.
For as long as I could remember, the house on the Larkin Street hill had been home. Papa and Mama had both been born in Norway. All of us were born here. Nell's the oldest, my sister Christine, and the littlest sister, Dagmar. But first and foremost, I remember Mama, with her very secret bank account and a wide open heart for other people's troubles.
Martha, I want to get married.
Irene is wonderful.
Yeah, I think it is.
Who is?
Mr. Torkelson.
I Remember Mama, 1948, is often considered the crowning dramatic achievement of Irene Dunne's illustrious career. In it, she delivers a sublime and deeply human performance as Martha Hansen, a Norwegian-American matriarch whose quiet strength and unconditional love hold her family together through the struggles of early 20th century immigrant life in San Francisco. For this role, Dunne received her 5th and final Academy Award nomination, widely regarded as one of her most heartfelt performances. Set in early 1900s San Francisco, the film is told from the perspective of Katrin Hansen, Barbara Bel Geddes, an aspiring young writer recalling her childhood. Through her eyes, we meet her large, close-knit family of Norwegian immigrants, headed by the steadfast and warm-hearted Mama, Martha Hansen, Irene Dunne. The story unfolds in a series of episodic memories, each illustrating the trials, joys, and sacrifices that defined their humble lives. Financial struggles, illness, and death in the family. This role is unlike most of Dunne's earlier glamorous or witty characters. Here she transforms completely, in appearance, dialect, and demeanor, into a working-class immigrant mother. The New York Times wrote, "Miss Dunne has never been more deeply affecting. She is Mama in every sense, warm, proud, and quietly heroic." Despite 5 Academy Award nominations, Irene Dunne never won an Oscar, a fact many film historians regard as a major oversight. Irene Dunne's personal life was notably different from that of many of her Hollywood peers. In an industry known for scandal, short-lived marriages, and high-profile drama, Dunne maintained a low-profile, dignified private life marked by faith, family, and public service. She earned a reputation for grace. The First Lady of Hollywood. Irene Dunne earned this honorary title not just for her on-screen elegance, but for the way she conducted herself off-screen. In an era when tabloids thrived on gossip, Dunne remained untouched by scandal. She was known for kindness and professionalism on set, admired by colleagues for her strong moral compass, often cited as a role model for younger actresses who struggled to navigate the pressures of fame. Her elegance was not just in appearance or performance, it was in the consistency of her character. In 1927, just as her stage career was gaining traction and before her Hollywood debut, Irene Dunne married Dr. Francis Dennis Griffin, a successful New York dentist. He was not part of the entertainment industry, which many believe helped her maintain balance and privacy. Their marriage was long-lasting, 38 years, an extraordinary feat in show business, where personal relationships often suffered under public scrutiny. The couple never had biological children, but adopted a daughter, Mary Frances Griffin, in the 1930s. Dunne was deeply devoted to her family, often taking long breaks from film work to focus on motherhood. She said in a 1940s interview, Being a mother is the most important role I've ever played. While many stars lived in Beverly Hills or Manhattan, Dunne chose a more modest and serene life, mostly in Los Angeles' Holmby Hills, where she could remain out of the spotlight when not working. Dunne's Catholic faith was a cornerstone of her life. She often turned down film roles that she felt conflicted with her moral or religious principles. Dunne wasn't content with just philanthropy. She wanted to serve in an official capacity, and she did. In 1957, President Dwight D. Eisenhower appointed Irene Dunne as a delegate to the United Nations General Assembly, a highly unusual role for an actress. After her husband's death in 1965, Dunne lived a quiet, comfortable life in Los Angeles, often spending time with family and maintaining her involvement in charitable work. She died peacefully on September 4, 1990, at age 91. There were no scandals, no controversies, only tributes to a life of integrity, talent, and unwavering grace. Film historians consider her one of the most versatile and overlooked talents of her generation. In 1985, she received the Kennedy Center Honors, one of America's most prestigious cultural awards. Irene Dunne wasn't just a star, she was a standard, a symbol of talent, grace, and unwavering integrity in a time when Hollywood was anything but stable. Though the Academy never gave her an Oscar, history remembers her as one of the finest actresses to ever grace the silver screen. If you enjoyed this journey through her remarkable life, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to Sajjad Classic. And if you'd like to support more stories like this, consider clicking Super Thanks below. Until next time, keep the classics alive.